Can everybody hear me? Hello, hello, besties. Looks like they're getting set up, so we can just shoot the shit in the meantime.
Sorry, I forgot the most important part of my job. I just want to let you guys know that there will be a question and answer time. We're going to try and extend it today to be a little bit longer. So that way more people have the opportunity to ask questions. We have a gentleman who will be passing around a microphone, and he does not know what organization you're from. And so this will, so it's purely random. So please keep questions to 1 or 2, and we'll try and get to as many people as possible. So thank you.
Do we have any bets on what we think this announcement is going to be? Are they just going to address rumors? Do they have an announcement to make? Any bets before it gets going? Oh, JK, here we go. It's already going. Right on time.
Good afternoon. My name is Chief James Fry with the Moscow Police Department. Joining me today is Captain Roger Lanier with the Moscow Police Department, Moscow Deputy City Supervisor Tyler Palmer, Colonel Kedrick Wills of the Idaho State Police, University of Idaho President Scott Green, University of Idaho Dean of Students Lane Eccles, and Lake County Prosecutor Bill Thompson. We are thankful for all the tips and leads the public has provided in Ethan, Xana, Kaylee, and Madison's murder investigation. No bit of information is too small, and every tip will be pursued. So far, this information has helped investigators build a picture of the areas of interest and the relationships these four had with each other and our community. We still believe there's more information to be gathered, which will continue creating a window to which we view this case. We all want to understand why this happened and what drove someone to do this. The families of those involved and our entire community deserve to know. We ask anyone with any information related to what happened with these four or in our community, their interaction with others, and whether they expressed concern or commented about someone or something strange to get that information to us. Even if you don't believe it is relevant, investigators will review and determine if and how your information builds the picture. Sometimes what a video or picture doesn't show is equally as important as what might be there. Information on how to submit tips and updates on the investigation can be found on the Moscow Police Department webpage. We continue moving forward to understand why this occurred in our community and seek answers to bring justice for the victims and their loved ones, because they deserve it. I personally want you to know we care, and we will continue to work hard to get these answers for these individuals. At this time, I'd like to introduce Captain Roger Lanier for an update on what we can currently share about this investigation.
Good afternoon. I'm Captain Roger Lanier with the Moscow Police Department. I want to assure you first off that the loss of Xana, Kaylee, Madison, and Ethan remains the highest priority for the Moscow Police Department. We will continue putting all of our resources into investigating and solving these murders. Investigators are prepared to work through the Thanksgiving holiday to continue their efforts. I also want to express our sincere appreciation to the Idaho State Police, the FBI, University of Idaho, and the Lake County Sheriff's Office for their assistance. And I especially want to thank the community of Moscow for their outpouring of support through this incredibly difficult time. Today, I'm going to recap in brief what we know. I'm going to provide some new information, and I'm going to address some rumors. On the evening of November 12th and into the early morning hours of November 13th, Kaylee and Madison arrived home at approximately 1:45 a.m. after visiting a local bar and a street food vendor. Ethan and Xana were also out in the community at Sigma Chi, and they arrived home at approximately 1:45 a.m. Two surviving roommates who were also out in the community arrived home at approximately 1 a.m. Later, on the morning of November 13th at 11:58 a.m., a 911 call was placed. The call reported an unconscious person. The call originated from inside the residence, and a surviving roommate's cell phone was used. During that call, the dispatcher spoke to multiple people who were on scene. Moscow police officers responded and found two victims, two on the second floor and two on the third floor of 1122 King Road. The results of autopsies indicated that the four were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds, and there was no sign of sexual assault. We do not believe the following individuals were involved: the two surviving roommates, the male seen in a grub truck video circulating on the internet, a private party who drove Kaylee and Madison home, any of the individuals who spoke to the dispatcher on the 911 call. We're also aware of a male whom Madison and Kaylee had called several times the morning of November 13th. We do not suspect that individual. Detectives have canvassed the neighborhoods looking for evidence, physical evidence, video surveillance, and they've contacted numerous residents to see if anybody may have seen or heard anything. They continue requesting tips. They can be sent to our tip line or called into our tip line. The specific areas that we're interested in are detailed on maps on our city website and our Facebook page. But as stated earlier, generally south of Taylor Avenue to Palouse River Drive, and the area west of US 95 over to the Arboretum. We have heard mention that Kaylee stated she may have had a stalker. Detectives have been looking into that, and to this point have been unable to corroborate the statement, although we continue to seek information and tips regarding that report. No suspects have been named or arrested, and we continue looking for what we believe to be a fixed blade knife used in the murders. We have not released the names of any of the subjects who spoke on the 911 call, and we have not released the call itself. Any online reports of the victims being tied and gagged are not accurate. Regarding the resources that we've put forth in this investigation, Moscow Police Department has 4 detectives, 24 patrol officers, and 5 support staff dedicated to this investigation. The FBI has 22 investigators in Moscow and 20 additional agents assigned in various locations, as well as 2 members of the Behavioral Analysis Unit. The Idaho State Police has 20 investigators, a public information team, a forensic services and crime scene team, and 15 uniformed troopers who have been valuable in helping provide community patrols and safety patrols. We very much appreciate their support. This is our highest priority. It will remain our highest priority. We owe that to the families. At this time, I would like to introduce Colonel Kedrick Wills from the Idaho State Police.
Thank you, Captain, and thank you for those that are in attendance today for your attendance. We really appreciate this. What has affected Moscow and the community here has affected all of us as Idahoans. We have a way in Idaho that the communities come together in tough times, and this is one of those tough times. Leads from the community are important, and as the captain spoke, no tip is too small, and we would urge anybody that has any information whatsoever to please provide that to help us solve this case. The lead agency of this case is Moscow Police Department with Chief Fry and his dedicated team of professionals, and the Idaho State Police's role is to support them and their good work here. There is an awful lot of efforts going on behind the scenes, and I'll explain why it's behind the scenes in just a moment. But what can't be seen isn't always known of what we do in law enforcement. And I'd like to explain that in just a moment. But the Idaho State Police and the FBI continue to provide resources to this investigation. I would like to speak for just a moment, if I could, not about this specific case, but rather an overview of how cases are investigated, so that maybe it'll give some sense of the why of the timeline here. We understand you want answers. We want answers too. But these take time, and if I could explain just a minute about the process here of what we go through just generally in investigations. So we use in advanced investigative techniques and crime scene processing. So what happens when a call comes in, the original officers, the first officers that respond to a scene, and then once that they've got their work there and determined that they need some additional investigative assistance, then they call investigators to come and help process that scene. And oftentimes it requires a forensics team to help process that scene. And when I say process the scene, what we're looking for any evidence that may help us to be able to find the people or person responsible for what we're seeing. And so we're collecting biological evidence, we're collecting latent evidence, whether it's shoe prints or tire marks or anything like that. We're trying to collect that evidence. We're trying to we do that through photographs. We do that through 3D mapping to be able to map the scene. We identify and we mark evidence, and then we collect that evidence. And then we look for any evidence that we think may be helpful. And once that is done, then we package all that evidence up and we send it off to forensics laboratories to be analyzed to see if it can help provide clues of what's happening. All of this takes an immense amount of time. The reason this is important to understand is because it's important that while this is such a tragic circumstance that we find ourselves in law enforcement, we believe we owe this to the surviving families to get this right. And so we're not willing to sacrifice speed for quality. We do testing for blood, we do latent print processing, any documentations for anything at the scene so that we can reconstruct that scene at a later date. If I could share just a few statistics of this particular crime scene. This crime scene, we collected 103 pieces of individual evidence. We took approximately 4,000 photographs. We've conducted multiple 3D scans of the residence, and we have hundreds of hours used by technicians and investigators, including our forensics team and detectives from multiple agencies. We've processed over 1,000 total tips and conducted 150 interviews. I hope that you understand that gives a little bit of a perception of just how complex this case is. We have the utmost confidence in this investigation and that this investigation will be done right. We ask you and we ask the public to please remain patient as this investigation unfolds. And please rely on official sources of information. We really appreciate the media's assistance. We know you have a job to do. We know that you're professionals and you do it to the best of your ability. And we're thankful that you're here, because without you, we could not get the correct information to the community that could help us solve this. So I can't overemphasize how much I appreciate and we appreciate in law enforcement your willingness to do this. What you are doing matters. And it matters in what we are committed to doing, and that is the best way we can think of to honor these victims and their families is to conduct this investigation correctly. Finally, I'd like to share that I've been in regular contact with Idaho's Governor Brad Little throughout this investigation. Governor Little is making available up to $1 million for expenses related to this ongoing investigation. As you heard, the resources that are here in Moscow and throughout with this investigation, you can see that those expenses would add up quickly. Like all Idahoans, Governor Little is deeply saddened by the loss of these 4 bright, and promising young lives. And he's making sure the state of Idaho provides all of the resources possible to ensure that the person or persons responsible for this are brought to justice. And now I'd like to turn the time over to the University of Idaho President, Scott Green.
Good afternoon, I'm Scott Green, President of the University of Idaho. We deeply appreciate the kind words of support we have been receiving from our alumni and friends, as well as many others who may not know us but have taken time to reach out. People are donating to the victims' GoFundMe pages and the Bruce Pittman Fund for students in need, and they're buying personal devices for our students and continuing to look for other ways that they can help. This is what it means to be a vandal. In the last 24 hours, we have sent updated communications to our students, employees, parents, and alumni. And in those communications, we discuss campus security, services available to our students and employees, our plans for both remote and live instruction to close the semester, and our plans for a candlelight vigil on November 30. All of this is available on our website. We all want swift justice and continue to work with law enforcement to aid them in any way helpful to their investigation. As the investigation continues, we will better know how to proceed in the new year. We will endeavor to find a balance among safety concerns, the need to grieve, and the long-term needs of all of our students and employees. Through everything we do, we will keep Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan, as well as their families and friends, in our thoughts and our prayers. Thank you. I'm sorry, I need to introduce Deputy City Supervisor Tyler Palmer. Sorry.
Good afternoon, my name is Tyler Palmer. I'm Deputy City Supervisor with the City of Moscow. And I'm here today on behalf of Mayor Arthur Betke, the Moscow City Council, and Moscow City Administration. Loss of Kaylee, Madison, and Ethan has sent an overwhelming, palpable wave of grief, confusion, sorrow, and anger through our peaceful community. Mayor Betke, with the support of our City Council, has instructed staff to marshal all necessary resources for our law enforcement professionals as they diligently work to assure the safety of every member of this community and find the person or people responsible for this. The outpouring of support, kindness, and genuine empathy locally and even globally has been a humbling reminder that those who want to help far outnumber those who want to hurt. And we take some solace in that. To all of you who've reached out, sent letters and cards, provided food for those working around the clock on this investigation, and offered other resources, we thank you sincerely. These continued acts of charity and humanity remind us why we live in this tight-knit, caring community. The City of Moscow is committed to seeing this investigation through to a successful end, and will continue to dedicate whatever resources are necessary for that effort. We are thankful for the immense support from the University of Idaho, Lake County, Governor Little and his office, the Idaho State Police, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Moscow is my home. And I know we won't be defined by tragedy, but how we respond to it. We mourn the loss of these beautiful young people, and we will relentlessly pursue justice on their behalf. Thank you.
So we would like to open it up to any questions, but I would like to ask if there's an Argonaut reporter here that would like to ask, and then second after that, an Evergreen reporter, if there's one in the room. So let's start with the Argonaut, please.
I love that he asked for the student reporters first.
James Truman Aldrich with the Argonaut. I have two questions, if that's all right. Firstly being what the police presence is going to look like after Thanksgiving break and how long that's going to last.
So I'll go ahead and answer. Police presence is going to be very heavy after the break. We have Idaho State Patrol that will also still be in the area, and you'll see a high impact of patrol officers and troopers, as well as Lake County Sheriff's Department personnel in the area.
And then secondly, would there be any possibility of the release of the 911 phone call, even in transcript form?
Not at this time. That's part of our investigation.
Frankie Beer, the Daily Evergreen. I guess the Moscow PD press release mentioned looking into hundreds of pieces of information about Kaylee's potential stalker. I was wondering what led you to believe she did have a stalker possibly, and why those pieces of information haven't come up with conclusive results.
I'm actually going to let Captain Lanier answer this question, okay?
Thank you, Chief. We obtained information through some of our interviews that Kaylee had made some comments about a stalker, so that's where that came from. We have followed up looking at specific time frames in specific areas of town. So far, we have not been able to corroborate it, but we're not done looking into that piece of information.
Dan Springer, Fox News. If I can get Captain Lanier. Sir, why not tell the public who the target was? You've said that this was a targeted attack. Why not tell the public who was targeted? If it was multiple people, it would go a long ways to telling the public what you're looking for and who you're looking for, the type of person you're looking for. Why not do that to alleviate some of the fears out there in the community?
Well, first and foremost, we have the integrity of the investigation to preserve. And we feel like that information is integral to us and how we conduct our investigation. Releasing that to the public may or may not flood us with a lot of information that's not relevant or specific to what we're looking at. So we do want more information, but we don't want to put our investigation in jeopardy by releasing what we have. There's always a balance between what you're willing to release versus what you're trying to gather. We told the public very clearly from the beginning that we're looking for a knife. We've told the public very clearly from the beginning that we believe it was a targeted attack. I mean, to be honest, you're going to have to trust us on that at this point, because we're not going to release why we think that.
So true. So true.
Lauren Patterson, Northwest Public Broadcasting. I see that the FBI set up a special web page just to collect digital information. I'm also curious if any of the investigators can speak to this. Curious if the Wi-Fi hotspot has been tapped at all. It's possible if the suspect had their phone on them, it may have pinged off the Wi-Fi in the residence. Has that been checked on at all?
As I stated, our investigation is looking at every avenue of every piece of evidence that we can. The FBI has given us a website for any downloads of video or anything. So we ask people, if you have any of that, to send it to us, please.
Laughing at the comment, not the content.
Thank you. Natasha Chen, CNN. I have a couple of questions here. One, in many homicide cases, the first hours, the first days are so incredibly crucial.
Yes,
Now
we've
that
all
we're
seen the
moving
first 48. Come on.
into a window that's further and further away from the incident. Does that concern you about the ability to arrest a suspect, or do you have information that you simply can't share with us that makes you confident that you're close to solving this?
I'm going to have the Colonel step up and address that, please.
Well, thank you for the question, and I would like to address it a little more globally than specifically, a little more globally here. Yesterday, as time goes on, I mean, we're time past the initial calls for service and the initial crime. However, we also, as time goes on, are able to process the forensics evidence, any forensics evidence that we may have collected, and so that helps us. And we're also able to process the tips that continue to come in, which may help us. And so, while time in one respect is not beneficial, in another respect it is, because it helps provide us with that whole picture of with all of the information that we're gathering, whether it's evidence or tips or any other information that we're gathering. It may help us to provide a clearer picture. And so it may help answer those questions that we're seeking as well.
Hi, Angela Palermo, Idaho Statesman. I was wondering if there's any evidence that suggests the attacker visited the first floor where the two surviving roommates were.
That information will not be released at this time. It's part of our investigation. And as we stated earlier, there's many things that are involved in investigation that we will release and things we won't.
That's the best questions people can come up with. Please, God.
Good afternoon, Ashley Soriano, Fox News. I have two questions. Have you considered the possibility of a murder-suicide? Is that something that you guys are considering right now?
Oh, Jesus bless.
That question has been asked previously, not at a press conference. It's certainly something that we looked at in the early part of the investigation. It is not something that we're looking at this time.
And I know some of the investigators' vehicles and police vehicles are coming in and out of the driveway. Do you think that potentially could disturb any tire marks or other evidence?
Oh
Yeah,
my God.
So the question has been asked about why did the crime scene tape expand? And that's not uncommon. When the first officers arrived, they tried to cordon off what they thought was important. We immediately expanded that when the investigators got there to process the scene. And logically, as this progresses, and you've seen this through our press releases, we have expanded it to several areas of the city and have in fact canvassed entire neighborhoods. So we try very, very hard to uncover every single bit of evidence possible in an area before we move on to the next area. So yes, we've looked at everything that we think we need to look at in and around the crime scene at this point. Well, it's a gravel parking area, so it would be hard to say that.
How are you folks holding up? How are your detectives and officers holding up? And Chief, you mentioned that detectives are prepared to work tomorrow on Thanksgiving. So is the expectation that they will be?
That is correct. We're
No
gonna have
shit.
many
They don't get days off.
detectives and agents working all the way through this incident. Our people are dedicated. Our people care about this community. Our people want to ensure the community that we're here to bring safety and we're here to get a resolve on this. So we will continue to push through. We'll give people time off as they need it, and we will continue to take care of them. But we're gonna keep pushing on this until we come to a conclusion.
Chris Mitchell, KLEW. Is there any plans to increase security for the Apple Cup on Friday?
I can't speak to what's going on in the state of Washington. I can only speak to what we're doing here on the campus of the University of Idaho in concert with President Green and his team. We are absolutely, with Idaho State Police and the Moscow Police Department, we are 100% dedicated to making sure that this continues to be a safe place for students to do what students need to do. And so that's why we have so many uniformed troopers here that aren't necessarily assisting with the investigation, but rather here to help with the campus security. And President Green and his team have been fantastic in helping to strike that balance to make sure that we have law enforcement resources here. So I can't speak what's going on anywhere else. I can tell you at the University of Idaho, we have a lot of state troopers and a severe increase of state troopers and Moscow police officers here, both on campus as well as throughout the community.
John Bell, ABC News. Are investigators looking at any possible connection to an unsolved double stabbing in the Salem, Oregon area about a year and a half ago? Specifically, 2 people stabbed in their home in the middle of the night, long knife, no suspect at this point. One died, one survived.
I think we're looking at every avenue, and we have other agencies reaching out to us with other cases and stuff that we are doing follow up on. We will continue to follow up on those.
Are you aware of that case?
Actually, I had a tip come in on that case, and I forwarded it to our tip line.
Okay, one more question. Can you confirm the bodies have been released to the families or are being released today?
I believe they have been released to the family, and I know that I believe one of them has already had a funeral.
Destiny Martin with the LCSC Pathfinder. Can you lend any insights into the possibility that the murder weapon is linked to the ROTC program? And also you mentioned that the analysis unit is here, will we be able to hear anything from them about a working profile they possibly have? And on that note, have you guys ruled out the possibility that the killer might be a female?
So we look at every avenue. We're looking at every group of people. Like I said early in our first press conference, we're not going to let any stone go unturned. I believe can you just clarify your second portion of that question? Of the BAU, sorry.
Yeah, I would like to know if the BAU has a working profile, because you look at victimology. Sure. Are you able to tell us who was killed first on the time of death, so that we may understand if it was a targeted attack, it would make the most sense if they killed one of the roommates first, and then maybe the other two. I know sure. This is not speculation. I'm getting off topic. My question is, are you guys looking at a working profile? Have they come up with anything new regarding the motive or intentions of the
The BAU unit is working diligently to do what they do. Will that be provided? I'm sure that may be provided once the conclusion of this case comes together. But they are continually taking in information, reading reports, and gathering information for that.
Good afternoon, Chief. Amanda Rowley with Crime 2. Seeing some speculation with some of the cars being searched this past week. Wonder if you can squash some of the rumors and that speculation. Is there anything you can share specifically on the white car out front, and then a follow-up for the university?
So I'll have Captain Lanier go ahead and go with that.
Thank you.
Well, we've looked at a lot of different vehicles. I'm assuming you're referring to the vehicles that were in the parking lot at the time. Yeah, so some of those vehicles belonged to the victims and some belonged to other people in the house. And so for us, that's part of the crime
AKA
scene.
the friends that showed up.
The crime scene was expanded out through the parking lot. So we wanted to make sure that we looked at those prior to releasing the crime scene. It was part of the initial investigation that night.
Thank you. And for the university, is there any additional information at this time that you can offer about the candlelight vigil, maybe what we can expect from that? And then any other information you can provide about that ask of the community to light the night on November 30th?
Thank you for that. I'm going to turn this over to Blaine Nichols at this point. He's actually planning the whole event.
Good afternoon. I'm Blaine Nichols, Dean of Students. The vigil is going to be hosted next Wednesday, November 30th at 5 p.m. We have it scheduled for the administration lawn at the moment. We're going to make a final determination on location early next week, just because we're waiting for the weather window to get closer, so we feel comfortable that that's where it will be located. We're anticipating a large turnout of community members, as well as university members, students, faculty, and staff at that particular event. And all of the families have been invited to join us if they so wish from that aspect of it. The response has just been absolutely beautiful and overwhelming to the love that has been provided to the institution as well as the family members. The Light the Night event that you're talking about, while I don't have a lot of details on that, is set to coincide at the same time, just so that people that can't be here in person as part of the vigil are going to be able to participate remotely as well. The vigil will be live streamed, and it's safe to say that the Vandal family is going to unite and come together to support the families in the darkest moments of their life, quite frankly.
Go ahead and take two more questions, okay?
Jordan Smith, KXLY.
Please don't waste them. Be good.
Do investigators know which entrance the suspect used to enter the residence? If this was someone who might have known the door code at the front, or maybe used the back door?
Once again, that's part of our investigation. We're not going to release that information this time. Thank you.
Noah Bolter, Monroe News 8. You said this was a targeted event. You won't tell us why they were targeted. What should students do to prevent being targeted in the future?
Oh, okay.
Well, that's a great question, especially in light of what just happened. If you would have asked us 9 days ago, we would have had probably a different answer. Moscow's always been a very safe community. In light of this, and maybe we should always look at it this way, vigilance, always traveling in pairs, knowing where you're going, telling someone when you arrive, and just that kind of general awareness.
By the way, they haven't had a
Maybe we should,
homicide in
as a
like
community,
7
have always
years or
been
7
doing that.
plus years.
You know, in some ways, this took our innocence. I would tell students that you need to stay with a friend. I know that the university staff is looking at different on campus and providing certain options to students. So, yeah, going forward, there's a lot of things that maybe we wish we would have done before, but we need to start doing now.
So I'm going to go ahead and close, but what we do want to let our community know that we do care. We do want to provide a safe environment. We will continue to work hard and we'll continue to do everything we can. We want people to be vigilant. We want people to report anything suspicious to us. Let us get there and handle it. But we are here to provide that safety. So I want to thank you today for coming, and I appreciate your questions.
Whew. Okay, well, let's see here. Let's see here. Oh, no. Get that off. Sorry about that. Blew my eardrums out too. All right, hang tight. Let me get situated. Let me get situated. That's not what I needed to get situated. Come on. Okay, that's what I need to get situated. So let's do this. Let's come here. Let's click on this. Give us a nice little background. Okay. Let's get to it. Let's see. So first things first, I do appreciate them doing the press conference, obviously, because this case is one that has taken over the news and social media. And doing these press conferences, they help because it lets us know that they care and that they're doing their best and that they are trying to communicate with the public as best they can within the constraints of protecting the integrity of the investigation. So I do appreciate them doing press conferences, whether we get a bunch of information or not. I still value the time and having them have for me in the comment section. No, there was nothing new that was really said. That's for sure. I was hoping that we would get something, you know, maybe they found a murder weapon. Maybe they developed an ID of a suspect or got a DNA profile. I had wishful thinking, hope for the best, but expect the worst. And that's what happened here. But I don't fault them. I appreciate them doing it because it just helps calm. If they were silent, people would say they're not doing anything, they don't care. Just amplify the bullshit that's already online. So them doing these press conferences, it does help. Let's see. I think that mentioning how many pieces of evidence that they collected is it's valuable, but if y'all listened to the situation, if you're new here, I have two podcasts. I have the Sojo Files, which is my main one, and the sister station, which is the situation. I did a podcast episode talking about just some of the facts versus fuckery in this case, and we talked about a new news article that came out this week. And someone said that essentially they alleged or accused them of destroying, quote unquote, obliterating mountains of evidence. And yeah, if you've heard that episode, you know that I think that's bullshit and quite unfair. So them mentioning that they had 103 pieces of evidence, I do think is valuable. Of course, not everything you collect is actually going to be, something that ends up being valuable, but it's better to take more than you need than less than you need. You have not been living under a rock. It's a very long story, but long story short, the Sojo Files, I was trying to decide if I wanted to do everything under one podcast or separate it to two. And I decided to do two. And then the Sojo Files, I have no words for how thankful I am, but it blew up overnight. So the situation kind of got put on the back burner, but now it's back. And so I'm doing my best to keep you guys entertained with that. Okay. Did you catch that they said some victims have defensive wounds versus one, significant or no? Initially, and we're basing our opinions and things off of very little grains of information that's being released so far. So initially we knew that Zaina had defensive wounds. Her father had said that. And so we knew that. And that makes sense to me. They then later changed that to some had defensive wounds. And really, to me, that just means that someone woke up in the process of the perpetrator committing these crimes. And so whether that means they woke up after or in the midst of being attacked, that's a possibility. We don't know, but based on them saying they believed that they were attacked while sleeping, I'm going to assume that the defensive wounds, of course, they're going to be valuable because it gives you insight to kind of what happened that day. But I don't think it changes anything that we've already talked about or thought or discussed. There's lots we don't know. I just keep telling myself that there is stuff we don't know about. So maybe they do have info or DNA. When the time is right, they will release it. I absolutely believe this to be true. I absolutely 100%. I believe this to be true. Y'all know that if I see something that I don't think is done up to standard or par. So if I thought that these investigators had botched this investigation so far, I would say that. Y'all know I'm shameless when it comes to that. So I have no problem stating that. And I don't believe that to be true. Now, I know that article came out, and if you listen to that situation episode, we won't rehash it. You know how I feel about it. But I think that it goes without saying that they have more information than they are releasing. And that is true and standard for literally every case that you've ever seen or that we will ever watch together or discuss together. That is absolutely true. So yeah, they definitely have stuff that they're not letting us know, and they're doing that for strategic purposes. And that is very hard and frustrating for the general public. I deal with that on cases that I cover, like the Shreve case. There's stuff that I just can't say because I can't have things be jeopardized by people who are trying to help. They have good intentions for the most part. I know y'all do, but I think people online, they try to help, but they can further victimize victims and also put the investigation at risk. And so they're doing what they need to do to make sure that their investigation is the best it can be to try to make an arrest and secure a conviction and justice for these victims. And so they're absolutely keeping stuff from us, and they absolutely have more than they are saying. So the other channel, okay, so I have two podcasts, but all of the stuff is on this one YouTube channel. So if you're listening to the podcast, you'll just need to look up the other podcast. But both the Sojo Files as well as the sister station, The Situation, both of those I post on this one YouTube channel. Makes it easier for me. Let's see what else we got here. If more than one potentially woke up, it would be nearly impossible that the perpetrator didn't have injuries, scratches, etc. That has to be the key to finding them. So and I talked about this on TikTok last night, with stabbing deaths or with a knife attack, the perpetrator has a high probability of accidentally injuring themselves during the commission of this crime. That is just a crime stat that is not up for dispute. That is just something that we know from years of studying stuff and from the statistics that come out, and you can Google it yourself. But perpetrators, when they commit a stabbing death, a knife attack, they do typically accidentally hurt themselves. And the probability of that is already high, but it's even higher in this situation because we have not one, not two, not three, but 4 victims. So the probability that the perpetrator or perpetrators, because that's not been ruled out, accidentally hurt themselves or injured themselves in the commission of this quadruple homicide the probability of that is extremely high. So I do think it is more likely than not that the killer's DNA will be at this crime scene. Let's see. What's your thoughts on motive? I watched a talk the other night on reasons people kill, sexual, financial, and I just don't get it. Okay. Oh, man. Okay, this is a good question. This is a good question. So here's the deal. We know that the victims were not sexually assaulted. That is fact, not fuckery. That was stated by the coroner. And we have no reason to not believe that. So that's a fact. That means that you can go ahead and take that element out. It was also stated that nothing was stolen, nothing else was stolen or disturbed. So there's no financial gain. And what does that leave us with? It leaves us with, and I'm not talking about this particular case, but if you just talk about in general, like motives for crime in general, you've got financial, you've got sexually motivated offenses. Did I just mess up the computer? Probably so. Accidentally minimized, y'all. I'm on a struggle bus today. But, you know, you've got organized crime, violent crimes, white collar crimes, cyber crimes, homicides, property crimes. There's all different types of crimes, all different types of motives. And with this, we know this particular case, not sexual, not financial. So put that aside. But just in general, that would also leave us with crime of opportunity, crime of passion. You're just a fucking sicko. And without more details, we really don't know. You know, yeah, someone down here we could say revenge, but the thing that doesn't pass the vibe check for a lot of this is that we have 4 victims. So initially they said this was a targeted and isolated event, and there were 4 victims. So when they said that, I was like, well, the math ain't math, and that really doesn't make that much sense, in my personal opinion, from, you know, my schooling and whatnot. That didn't make too much sense to me, because with a targeted attack, just generally speaking, not talking about this case, but just generally speaking, with a targeted attack, you have a target or you have a targeted place. And with a targeted attack on an individual, you normally would not harm somebody else unless they were collateral damage, in the sense of they just happened to be there, or they walked in on it, or they knew too much, or something like that. And with this, you have 4 different people. So the perpetrator went into the home, went into multiple rooms and multiple floors of the house. And so who would be the target? You see what I'm saying? When you have 4 people and you know that they're found in different rooms on different levels and said to be presumably sleeping during the attack. I mean, all 4 of them weren't a primary target. So why would you harm the other ones? And so I think that that is an interesting aspect. And for me, I was like, that doesn't math with a targeted attack, because you also know we have 2 surviving victims, the other 2 roommates in this case. And so I think that that's something that's also critically important. And it made me think, this doesn't seem very targeted. This doesn't seem very isolated. I'm not sure that saying that the general public had nothing to worry about was such a smart idea. Well, then come Tuesday, they doubled down on that. And come Wednesday, they just completely reversed and said, JK, we can't really say that. And then I was like, well, that makes sense, because it didn't make sense when it was initially said. Let's see. I see the comment that y'all are making. I'm almost scared to pin it because I don't want someone to take it the wrong way or to manipulate it into like rumors or false information. So if it gets typed a different way, I might pin it to the screen, but I don't want to pin it to the screen as is, because I don't want it to contribute to misinformation that people are putting online. So in your opinion, do you think it was someone who knew the layout of the house? I mean, I don't know shit about fuck. I don't know shit about fuck either, but here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll say. This is total speculation. This is just my opinion, my 2 cents. Take it or leave it. Don't care. We know that the house was 3 stories. We know that there were 6 people in this home, and we know that the victims were 4 out of 6 and on the 2nd and 3rd floor. And the 2 surviving victims were on the 1st floor of the house. That leaves you with some options that maybe the killer was unaware of the layout of the house. Maybe they didn't know that there was this bottom level basement floor. Maybe they didn't know there were actually 6 people in the home. Maybe they had no clue that the other 2 were home. Maybe they weren't expecting all 6 people to be there. Maybe they didn't know that there were 6 people in the house to begin with. Maybe they didn't know about the 1st floor. Maybe for whatever reason, they got interrupted or distracted or injured themselves during the commission of the crime and left without killing all 6 people in the house. That's also a possibility. So you have to keep in mind where it could be that they did not know the layout of the house, and that's why this occurred on the 2nd and 3rd floor. Maybe they didn't know that there were 2 other roommates. Maybe they didn't know about the basement. That's one way to look at it. But you also have to look at the fact that this person could have accidentally hurt themselves or been distracted or had something occur that caused them to leave after killing 4 people. So whether or not they intended to kill everyone in the house and didn't, whether or not they didn't know about the other 2 people in the house, we don't know that. But you have to keep that possibility in mind and think about this big picture, because until we have more information and can rule those things out, those are all things that you have to keep in mind for the big picture here. You can't be blindsided with one way or the other. So I don't think that it's been mentioned a lot that perhaps this person could have hurt themselves or been distracted and left, versus did they or did they not know the layout of this house and how many people in totality were actually at the house. So those are just things that I would keep in mind. And those are the things that I've been thinking about. The rumors are so fucking ridiculous. Like, so people send me stuff all the time, obviously. So I've had screenshots sent to me of Facebook pages and stuff and comments. And I'm like, the fucking audacity that some of these people have to comment some of this stuff online blows my mind. Like, if you've seen the movie Clue, Miss White's like, flames coming out of my head. Like, that's how I feel reading some of these comments, because I'm like, I can't. Like, people say the dumbest stuff. that's why I'm always encouraging y'all to comment like rumors, allegedly, supposedly, so that we're not contributing to the false narratives and rumors and bullshit that's online. We're trying to have a healthy, responsible, and educational conversation about the crimes and stories that we discuss. And the big reason for that is because the internet is a crazy place. And it's very unfortunate that not only do they have to get up here and address rumors, but an immense amount of them. And they are wasting their time and efforts and energy addressing some of these really dumbass rumors. Oh, somebody caught my hint earlier. The comment says, to me, something that seems comparable was Bundy, but that was not a first kill. So is this person or persons already done this before? I appreciate you for catching my drift earlier and rewording what some people had commented so that I could share it. Yeah, I do think this has very much a Ted Bundy vibes. Some of y'all might be younger and don't know that much about Ted Bundy, but Ted Bundy is an infamous serial killer, and we can shoot the shit about old Teddy later. But Ted Bundy broke into the Chi Omega sorority house, killed several women, and then he actually left the Chi Omega sorority house and then went to a residence and killed another female. So it shocked people. It is shocking inherently, of course. That's insane. And we really just don't know, right? Like at the end of the day, we don't know. We can't rule out that possibility, but got to be very careful about how you try to speak about things too, because people take things and run with it. I mean, I do think it is very comparable to the Ted Bundy situation. Of course, Ted had killed many people before that, because that was at the end of his run right before he got caught. So, but I do think it mirrors that situation slightly. It can definitely be compared to that situation. My thing with the rumors, and this is something that I struggle with a lot, especially on lives like TikTok lives or on YouTube lives or just really social media in general, is there's rumors that you guys read and have every right to naturally be curious about and then want to ask. And then I know that they're not true. And I'm debating to myself internally, like, do I answer this question with a fact or fuckery segment and say that it's not true? Or does me addressing this rumor give it life and make it worse? And that's something that I battle a lot. Like on TikTok, people were asking the other day about certain things, and I was like, that's not true. I see your comment, that's not true, but we're not going to bring it up because we don't want to contribute to more people hearing that false information. And so that's something that I deal with a lot. And it's very unfortunate that they even have to address these rumors. Of course, I understand why they have to, and there is a fucking endless amount of them. But it is a battle because you don't want to give that information to someone that maybe has not heard it and further contribute to that shit being out there. But you also want to shut it down because it's so ridiculous. But you know what? It's the internet, and people are going to keep being ridiculous regardless, because that, it is what it is. There's rumors, and then there's rumors. I will never get over this. This is a inside joke from the Shreve case, which is season 2 of the Sojo Files. I actually had to ask because I was looking up. I was like, is this like a vacuum? Like, what is this? And they're like, no, rumors, as in like rumors. But I love you for that, Anna. I love you for that. I need those types of inside jokes and dark humor. We do love the mods. We stan the mods. The mods make this possible. I could not do this without the mods. We would not be here without the mods. So everyone needs to show extreme love to my besties because they keep this crazy train that has flat tires and a Shania Twain cassette tape in it rolling. We love the mods. What else y'all think so far about this? Questions, comments, concerns, thoughts? Do we need to go over what we went over on TikTok last night, or do y'all want to save that for a late night tonight? I think that there's a lot of interesting things here. First off, like I said, them saying that they had 103 pieces of evidence, I think that's a good thing to say. Like, hey, we've got evidence. We've got stuff we're not sharing. We shouldn't have to state the obvious, but we will, because it's how the world works. So I appreciate them saying that they had 103 pieces of evidence. I appreciate them saying how many pictures they took. That's actually incredibly valuable, and I can't stress that enough, because investigators, they are the historians of crimes. Okay? I want to say it again. Police officers, investigators, they are the historians of crime. And what I mean by that is you only get a crime scene once. You can revisit a crime scene. You can do all, you can go back to the crime scene whenever you want to, but you only truly get the full crime scene one time and one time only. And so them saying that they had, what was it, like 4,000 images? I truly value that, because that means that they did their job to picture, click, 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 everything that they could. I hope they also did a video, because sometimes they will take a video camera and they will walk it through the crime scene, bodies and all, so that they have video footage of the crime scene to preserve it both with audiovisual as well as with photography. But the amount of pictures taken is valuable, because they only get one true chance to catalog, photograph, and make a record of the crime scene. And so I did value substantially him mentioning how many photographs were taken. I think that's really important, and I cannot stress enough the value of that, because that is 4,000 images that help preserve what that crime scene looked like and help investigators to better investigate this case and get justice for these victims. So that was something that I thought was great that he mentioned. Hey, I only do this with you guys. Y'all are my true crime besties. I love that they stated that they have this evidence and photos and that they have information, but they don't need to release that in order to appease us or help that case. Should they need to release it? Absolutely not. But on top of the immense amount of pressure that these officers have to solve a quadruple homicide in a city that hasn't had a homicide in like 7 years, they clearly, you can tell from this press conference, they take it personally, like they're emotionally invested and they care about this case, and it's taking a toll on them. That is only amplified. And I cannot stress this enough as somebody who's online, and I'm not even dealing with God anywhere near close to what they are, but comparably speaking, in my little bitty breadcrumb of fuckery that I have to deal with in my own life being online, the police department is dealing with so much pressure and so much scrutiny. And they, even if they don't want to, they still hear and see what's being said about this case online and on TV, whether it's, they walk into Walmart and it's on one of the TVs at Walmart, or a family member says something to them. It just happens. And they're already exhausted and have all of this pressure and just an overload of this horrific tragedy just right on top of them. What amplifies that is public pressure. So public pressure can be fantastic, but it can also have its negative sides, of course. And they don't have to say those types of things. They don't owe us an explanation for anything, but I like when they respect the general public and the taxpayers, the community that they are serving, enough to say, hey, we're not saying that we're better than you or that, we should have everything and you should have nothing. So let's work together the best that we can and kind of balance the power shift here. Like, we understand your frustrations. We're going to tell you what we can. And I know it's not enough, but this is what we can share. So they did not owe anyone, a number count for evidence or pictures, though I cannot say enough how much I value the transparency in saying that, because I do believe in transparency. I love them saying that because they know the public is hurting and they're wanting to give information. And so I appreciate that. And I do think that they're trying to combat some of the pressure that they feel by just some really unnecessary negative publicity that's going on right now with this case. Lord have mercy, because it is out of control. It's true. So a lot of people, I hear this a lot, like, I didn't know, that there were so many robberies or homicides or whatever. It's like, you don't know because it's not in your face, and most people don't want it to be in their face. But now you've got social media, which is good and bad, and you've got Netflix and the true crime community. And, if a case takes off, it really takes off for the good, the bad, the ugly. And there is a different level of accountability. But on that note, the general public and the internet needs to realize that they too have accountability for issues that they cause. That's just something to keep in mind as well, because everyone feels the mounting pressure. And when you add to the fuckery, when you add to resources being wasted with stuff that is a lie or not true, or you're just dogging the police department, like some guy has worked a 20-hour day and feels guilty going home to shower, eat his first meal for the day, and sleep 3 hours before getting back up to work. He has to feel guilty about that because he's hearing and seeing all the negative shit online about the investigation when they're actually breaking their back. That's not cool. I'm all about dogging people that deserve it, but at this point, I don't think there's anything to substantiate that they deserve it, because the truth is, fact check people. Some shit is just hard to solve. That's I know people don't like that. Everyone's like, well, there's cameras, there's cell phones, there's DNA. Yeah, epithelial cells. You touch a wall and by God, you've left your print, your DNA, your whole just right there where you touch something. And people have cameras galore and phones track you. And that's true, but it's not bulletproof. And I think that when you have cases that aren't super easy, they can be super hard. And I know that people think that that's ridiculous. Like, well, why wasn't it caught on camera? Where's the cell phones? Did you check the Wi-Fi? Well, like, no fucking shit, they checked that. Like, the FBI is there. But I digress. I think the holidays do too. Like, do those people deserve to have a Thanksgiving with their families? Absolutely, they do. Would they be fucking railroaded by the press if they took a half day for Thanksgiving? Yeah, they probably would. So, mad respect to the people that are working overtime and working the holidays to solve crimes and keep us safe, because, man, they're doing the Lord's work. Is somebody disrespecting the mods? Better not be. You cannot always trust shows and stuff. That is big facts. Big facts. Big facts. BRB, guys. Got to send a little side text. Hold on. Okay. I see this. If they're not in the system, there's nothing you can do. Okay, so that's true. If let's say they have a DNA profile, right? Like let's say that they have some of the samples tested and they came back and they developed a DNA profile for the potential perpetrators. That's fantastic. But you only have CODIS to run it against, which, is a national database. So if you get arrested for a felony, then you're going to get fingerprinted and DNA tested and all that non-fun shit, which that's what happens when, you become a felon. But if you're not in CODIS or a family member is not in CODIS, so like if my DNA was left at a crime scene and they run it through CODIS, and let's say, I don't know, my cousin is a felon, they're not, but for the sake of the story, then there's a thing called familial DNA, and there would be a partial hit on my DNA in CODIS because my cousin is a felon in the CODIS system, and then they would know that the perpetrator is someone that is somehow related to this person that's in CODIS, and they work their way out from there. But if they have a DNA profile and they don't get a hit in CODIS, you have to have something to compare it to. I mean, DNA is fantastic to have, but you have to have something to compare that DNA to. Oh, okay. I'm in the UK. Do police use genealogy sites, or is that just the movies? This is going to be something that we need to unpack on a different day. The Golden State Killer, who was an infamous rapist and serial killer in California, he was arrested. Time flies. It was maybe 2 years ago. Don't quote me on that because it's all a blur. But he was arrested using genealogy sites to get a DNA hit and then backtrack from there. This is going to be a very unpopular opinion, and that's okay because I will die on this hill. I do not think that police should use genealogy websites to investigate crimes. I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion. I have my reasons, and we can get into that another day. But I personally have an issue with police using genealogy sites to solve cases. Now, that's not being widely done right now by any means in the United States. It is being done. That's how they caught the Golden State Killer. But there's talk about people using that for the Ramsey case, the JonBenet Ramsey case, for instance. And with cases like the Golden State Killer and with cases like Ramsey that they have run DNA through CODIS and they can't get a hit and the case is 20 years old, then maybe using a genealogy website for those types of cases is something that I would be okay with. Like if they wanted to use a genealogy website to catch the person that killed JonBenet Ramsey, I would be okay with that. But using genealogy websites to just solve any case, we might as well just all go give our fingerprints and DNA at birth or age, 10 to the government and police. And, we can argue this out later, but me personally, I do have an issue with just a free-for-all with the genealogy websites, because who's to say that the genealogy websites then don't sell your DNA profile to, I don't know, insurance companies, and they then know what all genetic history you have for diseases you're prone to and things like that. So it's a very slippery slope, and I don't like slippery slopes. It's totally about where you draw the line. And everyone's got their own lines, and that's fine. That's just my 2 cents. Any other questions, comments, or concerns about the quadruple homicide in Idaho? because I do. So listen, I have to go do some shit later, but I'm more than happy to come back on later tonight and discuss the stuff that we were talking about last night as far as locations. So if y'all wanted to do that, we most certainly could. What would I have asked? Because those questions were really bad. Listen, yeah, those questions are really bad. They asked the question 10 fucking ways to Sunday, and the same question, they're not going to answer it. You're not going to trip them up into answering it again. The 911 call, for example, like they're not releasing that. I initially figured they probably are not releasing that to spare the caller, because I'm sure that it was traumatic and it's going to be very traumatic for them when it's released. But that 911 call could also have information in it that the caller said that they don't want released yet, and that's why they're not releasing it. I don't know which one it could be, but it definitely could be one of those. I would have asked questions like, can you confirm that y'all have obtained Ring cameras from neighbors? Can you confirm or deny if the apartment complexes near the house have given you a list of residents that live there? I would ask, how many days out are you from receiving the results of the DNA test? I would have asked, I mean, they wouldn't have answered this. I kind of don't even want to say this question online right now because I'm kind of worried that people will take it out of context and run with it. But this is a question that I would not have asked. Okay, so this is a question that I would not have asked because they would not have answered it. But a question that I would have had, again, would not have asked because it would have been, inappropriate, and they would not have answered it. But does Ethan, being the first victim to be put to rest, laid to rest, indicate that his injuries were of a less severity than other victims? A question that I probably would have asked is, based on the severity of the attacks, do you believe that based on the severity that certain victims' attacks showed, that one was the primary target? Are you thinking that one was the primary target due to the extent of the injuries that they obtained during the attack? That would be a question that I would have asked because it's appropriate, it's not insensitive, and I'm not asking for a direct answer. I'm not asking for them to tell me who they think the target was or the severity of the injuries. Just do the severity of the injuries that the victims sustained have anything to do with you believing initially that this was a targeted attack? And do you believe that the severity of the injuries sustained by a particular victim is what led you to believe that they were the target? Like maybe something like that I would have asked. Let's see. What else would I have asked? See, you know me, Sojo, in my head, like one side of my brain is like, this is the question that you want to ask. This is the question that you need to ask, bitch. Ask this question. And the other half of my brain is like, don't be a fucking asshole. That's inappropriate. That's rude. The families are watching. Don't fucking ask that question. Or they're not going to answer that, so don't do it. Don't look like an idiot. So that's just, my 2 cents. I'll never say no to a late night. Y'all trying to hang out with me later tonight? Because I know you bitches ain't going to work tomorrow because it's Thanksgiving. And I'm thankful for y'all. So maybe we should have a late night so we can be thankful together. True crime besties. So Ethan, the male victim, he was laid to rest on Monday. And I saw his obituary but I didn't want to read it to you guys on the podcast yet because I didn't want people to go see where his funeral was before it had happened. Which if you search the internet and you did, that's on you. But Ethan, the male victim, was laid to rest on Monday, November 21st. And maybe we can discuss part of that on the live later, or on the late night later. Got him on the struggle bus. I better make me some coffee too. I appreciate you saying that. Don't know a nice way to say it, because at least we're acknowledging that there's not a nice way to say it. So this is not this case in particular. Okay. So I'm just going to talk in generalities here. So nobody get crazy. Generalities. With a case like a homicide case, the victim is obviously, if they are dead at the scene, then they will be photographed at the scene. If they die in transport to the hospital, because preservation of life comes first, then you will have pictures of the crime scene without the body. So that's one way that they preserve evidence on the body, or that might be on the body, is first and foremost those pictures taken if the body's at the crime scene. Then the body is transported to the coroner's office and then the medical examiner's office, at least in Arkansas. Other states, they might do things a different way, but typically coroner picks up the body, it's then transported to the medical examiner's office. There, they will do stuff like toxicology, DNA test, or toxicology testing. They will scrape under the fingernails for potential DNA. They will comb out anything that's stuck in the victim's hair, and they will collect the evidence from the body at the autopsy. They'll take pictures of the wounds. They will do diagrams, like little drawn out diagrams of the body, where it was injured, the size of the injuries. Typically speaking, in a stabbing case, like they would have a diagram drawn out. First off, they're going to photograph the body and they're going to take x-rays, but then they'll have a diagram and they will mark where the injuries to the victim were on that diagram, and even note like this was a 2-inch in length and 2 millimeter in diameter wound. And so they heavily document all that stuff during the autopsy. So once that's completed and they've done a thorough job with the autopsy, at that point then the body is released to the family for cremation or burial or whatever they see best. Let's see. What happens if a lead evidence comes back and they need to look further, but they are laid to rest? Or is it so well processed that doesn't happen much? Okay, so listen. You should do your fucking job appropriately initially so that this doesn't happen. Like, it is always best to over document. I'm never going to talk shit about somebody over documenting without being like, oh, this is sus for XYZ reasons. Because sometimes over documenting, it's like, why did you even document that? That's not your job. But your job, if you're a medical examiner, is going to be to over document the condition of the body, like literally everything. Like the autopsy that I have for the Shreve case is over 600 fucking pages. It's critical to document as much as you can so that you don't have to go back. Now, if God forbid they didn't do that, because sometimes they are overworked and underpaid and they just don't, overdo anything because they don't have the time. That happens, unfortunately. If the body is not cremated, it is buried and the family approves it, you can exhume the body, meaning dig them up from their resting place for further testing. It happens. You don't want to be the one that has to go ask the family to exhume the body of their loved one put to rest to do testing that should have been done initially but wasn't. Like, you don't want to be that guy. But if you're the idiot that didn't do your job up to standards the first time, you know, and sometimes accidents happen. It's not even being lazy. If that happens, then you should be the asshole that goes to the family and says, hey, I fucked up. I didn't document something I should have, or I didn't test something I should have. Can I dig up, exhume your loved one from their resting place and retest it? You know, you want them to retest stuff if they need to, if that's what it takes to solve a case. Absolutely. It doesn't make it easier knowing that you're digging someone up from their resting place to do it. So, you know, there's that. So true. If it isn't documented, it didn't happen. And unfortunately, like I said, whether it's overworked and underpaid, they're understaffed, whatever it is, sometimes they don't, unfortunately, document things the way they should. And, you know, as a result of that, you have to further victimize the family to exhume them and sometimes they're cremated and that you're just shit out of luck. So, you know, that's why it's important to do your job right the first time, or to the best of your ability. Like, I'm constantly stressing, like, did I do enough? Did I document enough? Did I word that appropriately? Did I, you know, I'm stressing 24/7. If I was like hands-on involved, you know, I stress over the Streep case because I am hands-on involved. But, you know, if I was directly dealing with evidence or forensic pathology stuff, like, I would be over documenting the fuck out of everything, because I would be so horrified and embarrassed if we had to ask a family to exhume the body. I do think that they gave evidence, like, we've got over 103 pieces of evidence. We've got over 4,000 pictures. I do think that in part they did that to reassure the public that they're doing their best and they're not idiots. They're doing their job to the best of their ability. And I do think it was partially to throw shade at some of the bullshit that's online. Right? Like, if it's something that, like, you feel the pressure to document, you just feel like you never did a good enough job. You know, like, you're sleepless, you're working tirelessly, like, you overdo it, and then you're worried that you didn't do enough. Now, imagine how those cops feel. Imagine how those cops feel. And then they see all this shit online. And listen, y'all know, if it was substantiated, it'd be like, they fucked this up. They fucked this up. They were on pictures. They didn't do this right. They didn't do this right. But nobody has anything to back it up other than they're just frustrated. This is true too. Sometimes it's about new evidence that may lead to a lab test that you have to know what to look for because it doesn't show up in a routine autopsy. Yeah, some places don't, you know, test for, like, let's say maybe you're going to test for some type of poison or something. Like, maybe that's not standard in your area to test for poisons or XYZ. You should always test for drugs. That's toxicology. But, you know, yeah, sometimes it's just not standard to do some type of test. And then you hear something and you're like, fuck. This right here. This right here. Yes, ma'am. Well, listen, if something ever happens to me, I'm trying to be cremated. So you bitches, I'm counting on y'all. You better make sure that they do my shit legit, like too legit to quit the first time. Because a bitch is trying to be cremated and have my husband carry me around on a necklace and a keychain, or maybe push me into a diamond and rock that shit. I don't know. But I'm trying to be cremated. So listen, true crime besties. Listen, besties. Better make sure they do that shit right first time, too legit to quit. Because, you know, that'd be all she wrote. This is a really great point. It is. So it's crazy too, because some people are like, you know, you're anti-police or you're anti this. I am absolutely not. There are some prosecutors that I think hung the moon. They are angels on earth. There's some prosecutors that I think are trash fucking humans and should be sitting in prison with some of the people that they prosecute. There are cops that I think are phenomenal. They risk their lives for ungrateful assholes every day. And you know, they have a thankless job and they work wonders, and we're undeserving of them a lot of the time. But then there's also piece of shit cops too. But for me, it's not about, everything is circumstantial. You have to look at everything, and you have to really look at everything. I don't mean like some 5-minute fucking Google search or some shit you saw on TikTok. I mean, like, you have to really look at everything and think about, is it fair to say this? People make mistakes. Human error is just part of life. And so when you look at something, when you evaluate something, you should think, is that fair? Is that how I would want to be judged? Like, just think outside of the box and don't get clouded by bullshit you see on TikTok or the news or a Google search. Like, take the time for critical thinking. And that's why we're here. We're critically thinking about things in a respectful way to have a more educational and open-minded experience, not just this fuckery that's wears me out. Oh, shit. Amy says she's getting cremated too, so this is going to be a too legit to quit situation as well. As Shannon said, dig me up, mourn me again, eat, drink, and be merry. Okay. It's a great way to look at it. Please do. Please do. Pass me around. Make me a keychain. Take me on vacation with you. Let's see. I'm gonna hang out a few more minutes, and then I have to like go get presentable and shit because I have to like fucking do something today. I'd rather hang out with y'all, but you know, gotta go do some things. So we'll hang out a few more minutes, and then I have to go like, you know, shower and find clothes because the huggle I'm wearing is not gonna suffice, and like glue on my fake eyelashes so I don't look like an alligator, and like all the things. So we'll hang out a few more minutes, and then I gotta go. But we will reconvene for some late night fuckery. Listen, I love some over documenting. I used to say that I would never get mad about over documenting, and then I saw something that was highly sus because it was documented the fuck, and I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. You were there 10 minutes. You wrote a fucking dissertation over here about some shit you should know about if you were only there for 10 minutes. But I do think that over documenting stuff is the way to go. And if you've seen my office, and the mods can tell you that the stack of papers over my head, I'm 5 feet tall, the 6 feet tall stack of papers for Shreve, or any of the other cases that I work on, they'll tell you is over documented. Because if I'm going to be wrong, which I do not like to be, which is why I'm reserved on how I say things and research the fuck out of stuff. But if I'm wrong, best believe that, I did everything I could to not be wrong. But for tonight, some things that I want y'all to think about for the late night tonight is, who on here was on the TikTok live last night? We did a impromptu late night on TikTok. I just want to know who all on here was a part of that conversation and kind of heard my little light bulb moment that I had. Because I was literally like, oop, let me text the mods. Y'all, I think I figured some shit out by happenstance. I did for Duggar. God bless. I still have all that shit in my fucking office right now. And I can't get rid of it because it's got stuff in it. So, they just sit in a fucking safe. I hate that for you. I'm sorry. Juju's in the UK too. She'll sometimes we'll be on and Juju's like, good morning, I just woke up. I'm like, oh man, I really kept y'all up all night. I'm so sorry. Yes, that's the light bulb I'm talking about. Yes, the parking lot. I love y'all. Listen, you're talking dirty to me, Nikki. If you got some good notes, like, my girl. But last night we kind of talked about some location stuff. So instead of having just like a fucking ridiculous Let's blame, like, listen, some people just get online and they're like, listen, I think it was the neighbor because he was a champion wrestler and he got kicked out of the fraternity, and like, oh my God, stop right now. They literally post the person's name. I'm like, what's wrong with you? We live in America. It's innocent until proven guilty. You shouldn't even talk shit about somebody unless you can verify why you're doing so. And because somebody got kicked out of a frat and was a boxer will not suffice in Sojo land. In shithead community, that's not going to suffice. It's not going to pass the fuckery check. So all that aside, I looked at just stuff that we know, fact versus fuckery, and just interesting things to think about. And so I was looking at pictures of the interior of the house because online people constantly ask about the drops outside again. I do not believe that to be blood, but I don't know shit about fuck. And long story short, I ended up just looking at the parameter of the property and things like that. And I found this a lot because one thing that really sticks out to me, and this is just standard thinking. Again, I can't stress this enough. Standard common sense. We don't have to like go down any rabbit holes. Just standard common sense. You have 4 victims. It's a stabbing death. This perpetrator or perpetrators looked a hot ass mess. And I'm not trying to be ugly. I just have a dark sense of humor because I look at negative shit all day. But this person would be covered in blood. And they got out of that house without being noticed that they were blood soaked. They got back into their home, whether it be they live alone or with someone else, without being noticed. And for those reasons, how the person left is of interest of me, because did they walk home, meaning that they live close by? And if so, how did they not get seen? If they were in a car, well, there's a gravel driveway and headlights, and how would that not have been heard? And then I pull it up geographically and I see the fucking parking lot on the other side of the wood, the little quote unquote wooded area. And then I'm looking through the house pictures and there's like the path and the car at the end of it. And so I'm like, oh, that's very interesting to me. So for our late night tonight, that's the type of stuff that I would be thinking about, is using common sense stuff to evaluate this. Like, don't get down the rumor bullshit contributing to the toxicity of the internet, and dragging down innocent people. Like, some of the shit I saw this morning made me want to just unplug. So ridiculous. But I encourage y'all to just think about have responsible sleuthing before we reconvene tonight, and think about just basic things instead of getting caught up on the fuckery that you're like. Don't even read the stuff online, and I will know because you will comment it. Y'all rat yourselves out. I mean, I love you for it, but some of y'all are like, what about the dog? Fake news. That's on the fuckery side. That's on the fuckery side of the fence. But a lot of y'all rat yourselves out, and I love you for it. When you ask certain questions, I know that you're, keeping up with certain things online. Oh boy, that'll be interesting. Yes, and I was so proud of y'all that were on TikTok last night, because I was saying, like, if you're commenting something and you're going to ask comments based off what you've seen and read online, duh. But can you please put rumors or allegedly before your comment, as to not further contribute to false information being online and being perceived? Like, let's upfront say rumor or allegedly, so that people don't read that and take it to be fact, because that shit happens on the reg. And I was so impressed by how many people did it. And I was so thankful. So thank you all for doing that, because that's responsible sleuthing. Do you 100%? 100%. I tell you what else. So hospitals, they call that shit in. So like if you show up to the hospital and you have a knife wound or have been shot, they call that in. The staff of the hospital calls that in. And it will literally show up on, your local dispatch, like shooting or stab victim or cutting. And it'll be at the location of a hospital. And that is because the hospital has called in a victim that showed up with a stab wound, a gunshot, or quote unquote cutting. Why they do it like that, shit, I don't fucking know. But quote unquote cutting drives me crazy when they say that. But so if the hospital did not call it in already, then I can guarantee you that they have checked the hospitals. I think we all need a badge that says responsible sleuthing. Anything else before we get off of here? I gotta go put my face on and all that bullshit. Like, I'm gonna have to squeeze into some jeans. I don't know about y'all, but like squeeze into jeans because it's cute and fashionable, and then go eat. Like, I know nobody eats comfortably with their jeans zipped and buttoned up. I can't be the only person that wears jeans because it's fashionable and shit, but is really like, I wish I was in sweats because no one likes eating in the constriction of jeans. Cannot be the only fat ass. Somebody else, please say that you as well don't like wearing jeans to eat. So what time do y'all want to do late night? I mean, I'm asking, but y'all know that it's going to kind of be whenever. Okay, thank God I'm not the only one. Urgent care. So just to finish the previous comment. So urgent care, some urgent cares, they can do stitches and stuff, but I can guarantee, like, this is a small town. There's not going to be that many options. So they definitely called like the maybe 10 options that the town had. I mean, they've gone to every single place that sells hunting knives and weapons and said, hey, did y'all sell a new knife to anybody? So they've definitely checked urgent care. I can guarantee that. I have no doubt. I mean, if they haven't done that, they should be fired. But I have no doubt that surely to God they did that. Okay, people that chill in jeans are a different kind, and we are not the same. We're not one and the same. I'm going to come on here. I think I'm going to come on here tonight. So I'm going to put my fake lashes on so I look like an alligator and like squeeze into these jeans and shit. Like the bra's still on the table. That's a good thing about being on the itty bitty committee is that that's still on the table. We're not going to get too fucking fancy, but I'll have to go do this like adult bullshit. And then I'll come back and yes, it should be. It absolutely should be. I'll come back and we'll have fun. The mods, of course, will announce on Discord where it'll be at and what time. And I can post it on the Instagrams. So we'll figure that out. But I'm going to go, you can tell I'm like begging y'all. Like I'm fucking begging y'all to ask questions so I don't have to get up from this computer because I'm, trying not to adult. Remind y'all on TikTok again. I can do that. I can remind y'all on TikTok. I saw all 600 of y'all show up on TikTok and be like, oop, my bad. Like, wrong place. But I'll do a reminder on TikTok. That works for me. So sorry that the press conference was exactly what we predicted last night. But you hope for the best. Expect the worst. And that way you're not disappointed. So I am sorry that it is exactly what was expected, but I do very much appreciate them for taking the time to do that and sticking with the community. So I'm going to get off of here and I will see you guys later tonight. I love you all. I appreciate you all very much. And because tomorrow is Thanksgiving, I am so very thankful for each and every one of you because without you, there would be no community. There would be nothing to watch and know people to talk to. So I'm very thankful for each and every one of you. And I'm going to hop off of here. I'm going to go be an adult. I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit the end button. I'm going to go adult. So I love you all, and I will see you all tonight.